Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me, Dr. Keith McNally. This is my vlog, A Veteran Story. I'm here with Bernie, and we're going to give him an opportunity to introduce himself. He's been a really big help for me to kind of take on some new challenges. And so I have been finding myself in these loops of life events, the most recent being my fifth period of unemployment since like 1996. So I tend to go through these cycles, and I'm not sure why. A friend of mine, or a friend of ours, Cheyenne Kramer, said that I should have a conversation with you. And that conversation turned into a session. Before we get into any of that, Bernie, hello, welcome to the call. Please tell everybody who's watching who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bernie, and I am the developer of Receptor Reprogramming Technique. It's a system that is designed to reprogram and unlock the subconscious mind. It works on the mind, physical symptoms. It works on spiritual challenges as well, which is really cool. And it's been a pretty profound process. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, and I think, well, you're welcome. And two, I think that's the very thing. I think all of that you just said was kind of the subconscious or the unconscious or the stuff that I don't know what's going on in my life that I should be more aware of,
Hmm.
that I could face and challenge and say, this needs to change. And so when we stepped into session, I said, I want to figure out what's going on here because this is a cycle of unemployment. And it didn't, and what we talked about and how you've kind of helped me think about this is it's not about what I might have thought about it being the problem. The actual
Hmm.
problem
Yep.
was, what was my actual problem? See, I want to
Oh,
put you on the spot a bit.
I didn't even bring the notes.
No, it's okay. That's
So,
okay. I'm
so
only, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, I didn't bring the notes, but it did reveal that there was loops that were going on within your subconscious mind and complex loops.
Mhm.
And those are the key to unlocking and unraveling any issue when it comes to complex mental health. These loops, they lock in they lock patterns in. So, if a fear of failure, for instance, can trigger us to, uh, let's see, I'm just trying to think here of right off the top of my head, and I'm right now having a blank actually, but um, where you have a stressor, and then the stressor, say for instance, fear of failure, and then there'll be something causing or triggering that fear of failure.
Okay.
And what happens is that thing triggers in a loop. So the stressor is also creating the the circumstances or the belief or feeling
Mhm.
that was actually triggering the pattern, the thing that
And,
you're working on.
and so for me, there were a couple of underlying patterns. One of them for me was the feeling of just being disconnected. And
Hmm.
and that showed up in several different ways in my five senses
Hmm.
and in extrasensory perception per
Yes.
se.
Yep.
So that feeling of just feeling disconnected and not fitting in was really triggering this looping structure for me that
Yep.
showed up in periods of unemployment. Now, it took a while for me to kind of figure out the true connection because I had to go back and process what we did afterwards.
Yes.
And so for me, especially somebody who struggles or is challenged with PTSD, really does find that the inner communications, the interconnectedness between me and other people is a challenge. It
Hmm.
definitely is a challenge in my life. And so you've kind of brought that to the surface. And so, for one, I want to thank you. I got to thank you in front of everybody who's watching to kind of help me really appreciate that. But then what you did in session is really kind of where the miracle happens. And so can you kind of explain how you help people such as myself
Hmm.
bring those things to light and then break them free of the blocks or the loops?
Sure. Okay. Do you mind if I start with explaining how this system came out?
Please,
intervene?
please. Yeah, please.
Okay, so back in 2021, I started receiving or started experiencing these mystical type, um, lucid type dreams. I would say lucid dreams. They weren't lucid.
Okay.
It was an altered state of consciousness that it was can't really describe, but I think lucid dreams might be the easiest way to describe the experience for the average individual. These teachers came to me, these masters, and never really had an experience with. I heard about them, never um, wasn't sure if they existed or not.
Hmm.
I heard it as a concept, um, but they taught me this system, and the foundation of the system is in three parts. There are conscious triggers, and the conscious triggers are all of the things that you can consciously think of that are triggering what it is that you want to release. And I call that your stressor. Okay. So, um, your stressor in this particular case having to be these periods of unemployment. And one of the things that was triggering this period of unemployment that you needed to work on was revealed. Once you identify all the conscious triggers, then there are what are called sensory triggers. So the five senses. Now, it's not just the five senses, it is also the metaphors related to each of the five senses. And I have large lists, and I use kinesiology or muscle reflex testing to go through the list to discover what is going on, what is causing, um, or what is causing or triggering this pattern of behavior or stressor in your life.
Hmm.
From there, once we're done, and there's no more sensory triggers, I use kinesiology to ask if there's any extrasensory triggers. Extrasensory triggers is other than the sensory, so beyond the sensory triggers. There's also an ESP type connection to this, where the there's an extrasensory perception dealing with feelings. Feelings, I thought growing up, I was taught that feelings and emotions are the same thing. And actually, they're not. They come from different places. So there's an emotional plane, a mental plane, but there's also the psychic plane. And the psychic plane is where your feelings reside. Your intuition is part of that. And so when you look at how, things might make you feel, then we address all of those things, your feelings, and um, from there, then we are once those are clear, um, we get you to connect to a new message. When we've deactivated all the triggers that we can discover, then you go in and you have space now to actually connect to the positive message that was trying to be revealed to you all along. It'll be a truth and it comes from within your subconscious mind. And oftentimes it is around the opposite polarity of what it is that you were working on. If it's like, for instance, fear of failing, then it's the message might be, I got this, and you're going to be fine. And then you connect to an emotion about how does that make you feel, so you get a visceral experience,
Hmm.
and then from there you uh since our chat, actually, there are positive complex loops that reveal themselves at the end of the session. So this was a new discovery since um our last session together. And so now there's positive loops that we can actually activate.
So for our audience, for my watching and listening audience, I had two sessions with you. So the first
Mhm.
one was to kind of take on the understanding of how to break this negative looping structure of being unemployed. And
Hmm.
I'm currently unemployed. I'm still unemployed. And
Hmm.
so I am looking for a job. But the reason why this is so significant for me is because these periods of unemployment have a greater impact on my psyche, my psychological, my emotional, my being per se, because they eventually link to really deep periods of depression,
Hmm.
which then fosters suicide ideation. And I've made 5 suicide attempts through these looping cycles that start with unemployment they end in complete despair, and I really do challenge. So for this being that, this period, my sixth cycle, I am not suicidal. I am
Happy
not
to hear that.
depressed. Now, I am struggling with the fact that there's no cash flow, so let's kind of be realistic here.
Of
But
course.
I'm not going through this real negative spiral down where life is imploding. And so that is rather significant for me. Now, that doesn't all, it's not an all an outcome of our session, but it is relevant to everything that I've been kind of going through since 2021, which is the last time I had this kind of this cycle go through. And that
Hmm.
was a really traumatic experience for me. So everything that I've done since then to change how I approach my world, physically, psychologically, emotionally, feeling, spiritually, all
Hmm.
of those things working together are of great value to me now. Having these conversations, especially this conversation with you, is of extremely great value to me because I'm better understanding how my world works.
Hmm.
And now that I have these, now that we kind of did a breakthrough on what that was all about, I asked you to come back. I said, I feel disconnected. I feel disconnected from me. So first it was about just not fitting in, but I
Hmm.
wanted to dive deeper. And so I said, can we figure out why I feel disconnected? And we did another session. Your sessions are about how long? About 2 hours long?
Yeah, depending on the stressor that you're working on, there are many sessions that go multiple days because the layers are so deep.
Wow.
So I've had sessions with clients where to get to the root of it, it's been 6 hours or 8 hours. Like I'm talking complex mental health. You got to unravel, you have to unravel the knots
Mm.
within the subconscious mind so you can take this big ball and knotted yarn and then make it a straight line again, you know?
Good
And
metaphor. Yeah, very good metaphor.
so sessions, I don't like to go more than 2 hours in a session. And the reason why is because you need time to process.
Mm.
And it's a lot. Like there's sometimes you're connecting to stuff and you're getting epiphanies, and they can be emotionally draining because when you're you can some people, some of my clients will start crying. They'll start processing stuff that they've needed to process, um, that they hadn't processed all their
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
whether it's a trauma or whatnot, and to connect to your empowerment, to connect to at the end, and obtain that full release, the process is so worth it.
Now, you talked about we worked through what you help people work through initially is the negative looping structures and the negative complex looping structures. But when we ended the second session, you actually did something intentional, and that is you said we're going to create a positive looping structure
Yep.
as an intent. And so
Mm.
we talked about, and it was a complex positive looping structure because it was, multiple things
Yep.
interconnected. And for me specifically this time, it was empowerment, love, freedom, and all of the
Yep.
things, metaphorically, reality, internal, external, that I needed
Hmm.
to kind of put together to kind of move forward, both as an understanding and as a spiritual component to who I am, so
Hmm.
that kind of
Truth.
sits deep inside of me
Yep.
in my psyche, my subconscious, and I'll use the word because I'm kind of moving in that space, in my divinity, which is kind of really crucial at this point.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about the value of not just eliminating or cracking the code of the negative loops, but then adding that element of positive loops and positive complex loops?
Sure, absolutely. So it's interesting because the premise of or foundation of understanding in regard to this system actually is based off of Dr. Bruce Lipton's work with protein receptors. And so these teachers taught me that protein receptors not just exist on the physical level on the surface of all of our cells, but thoughts get triggered, emotions get triggered, feelings get triggered. And so these protein receptors also exist the energy or vibrational foundational frequency of these protein receptors also exist as energy expressions within the mental plane, the psychic plane, and the emotional body. And so what happens is that um, this process, you need to deactivate the negative. You have to deactivate the way the negative things are triggering your behavior. And as you deactivate and go through this system, you notice that not just the things that were triggering, but it was the things that you weren't doing, which were triggering the
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
And so
Absence, yeah,
the
absence of
path,
good. Yeah.
yeah, so the path out actually is revealed through the system itself. It becomes a natural byproduct, the way that this system is created. Yes, there's the negative, but there's also the path out, the things that you aren't doing or the way that you weren't looking at things or hearing things or experiencing things.
Mhm.
And so at the end, you not only do you need to deactivate the negative, but you need to create a positive and be in a positive frame or uh, understand the positives. And so the loops, which are really phenomenal, the understanding of it has expanded since our last session. And this process, like we can use this as an example. So you got your message, and then that was made you feel love, self-love,
Mhm.
right? And in this place, the very moment, the very instant that that love was felt, there was a plethora of things that also exist at the same time. And so the other one you mentioned was empowerment. And so when you are empowered, it makes you feel love and you connected to how it did that. When you were feeling love and in this place of love, how that empowered you. And that is a loop.
Mhm.
And so we activated. So not only is there a deactivation process, but there is an activation process for things, um, for instance, like you experienced. Um, this it's cool because this technique also has a pathway to when you're dealing or working with limiting belief systems, you can actually program enhancing belief systems. And you can actually, so I was identifying the five senses. So when you deactivate the five senses, and at the end of the session, you can activate the five senses. So I want you to see yourself um, empowered. For instance, so I am empowered is your new belief system. And
Mhm.
you can see yourself empowered. You can hear the words that your self-talk that prove that you are empowered. You can taste or experience. What is the experience that shows or proves that you are empowered? So you can do the same thing with the five senses.
And for me, that's actually so valuable. And what I've done since and what I've learned a few years back is the power of my words. And
Yeah.
so uh, they actually help me create the reality that I want to exist in, but
Mhm.
because they're energy. And you
Yeah.
specifically said that everything, and this is what I took out of I know I'm jumping back and forth, but one of the crucial things that I want people to recognize who are kind of looking beyond the traditional um, therapy, and not that I'm discounting psychiatry or outpatient therapy or, cognitive behavioral structures of how people deal with things. This and what you bring to the table kind of breaks free I'm trying to very carefully use my words, the energy that holds us where we are. And that kind of sounds odd and weird for people who don't kind of appreciate that. For me, the negative energy that keeps me suppressed, keeps me stuck in this cycle of, I don't like my life. I have trouble connecting with people. I don't fit in. When we break, and that's all energy. That's kind of what you taught me. All of that is energy in certain ways, shapes, or forms, and it
Mhm.
manifests
Yep.
in certain ways, shapes, or forms.
Yep.
And when you break that, and when I felt that release, that's why the first thing that it came out of my mouth is that it felt like it just felt the weight was gone.
Hmm.
The weight was gone. And then it was like I could breathe again. I
Hmm.
could physically breathe
That's
again
a
in a way
that's
that
a
I've not.
feeling, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's your
exactly.
psychic body.
Yeah.
I can breathe. I feel like I can breathe again. Obviously, you're breathing, but it's a feeling, a visceral feeling inside you, and that is actually stemming from your psychic body. So there you go.
And that's what I want people to kind of have that experience.
Yeah.
I want them to hear this conversation and say, I've been and thinking to themselves, I've been feeling stuck for so long. And traditional therapy or, my best friends or alcohol isn't working anymore.
Hmm.
How do people get in touch with you? What is the best way for everybody who's watching and listening? And this is also going to go in my LinkedIn newsletter after it publishes to my
Okay.
YouTube channel. Where can we find you?
Receptor Reprogramming Technique, or sorry, receptorreprogramming.com.
Okay.
Dot com. Yeah, receptorreprogramming.com. And they can actually find a link there to buy my book on Amazon too, as well, if they're interested.
Well, what I'll do is I'll put that in the description and show notes. Once they land there, how do people, so is there a way to literally, do they get to your email or is there like
Through the email. Yeah, that's the
calendar?
easiest way. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
And for people who would be new to this type of experience, but really just, like I said, feel stuck and struggling
Hmm.
because everything traditionally isn't working, how do you kind of help people transition their thinking so that they could really appreciate this? Because they have to be engaged in this. This isn't a
That's correct.
passive, oh, like you're going to wave a magic wand and my life is going to change. It's not how this works.
Hmm.
They have to be actively engaged and really believe that this is going to do something different for them. How do you help people step into that new space?
Well, first of all, recognizing that the power to heal is within themselves. They have to remove the energetic blocks that are preventing them from breaking free or healing or whatnot. And so the the process with this is that I'm a GPS unit. I use kinesiology to navigate the subconscious mind. I know where to look.
Yeah.
I've developed the system that helps me know where to look. And so it is you connecting to how the trigger is creating the stressor when I bring it up or when
Mm,
you bring it up.
mm,
And it's literally it's there is a union, if you will, or a connection that forms through these sessions. Uh, I am quite intuitive, and oftentimes my intuition, I will get intuitive hits and I follow and I ask. Sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're wrong. And so I muscle test to make sure. So, um, and then I just follow that path and wherever it leads us. And then my goal is always to make sure that we clear all of the triggers and don't leave anything unresolved. The reason why is because when you think about rot in the root system of a tree, if you only get one little branch and you have the whole main trunk, well, that rot in that main trunk is going to eventually come back and affect that little branch in the root system. It's so we want to go back and work our way all through and clear all of the rot that's in the root of that subconscious mind, and then that's what allows for the shift in perception, shift in understanding, and the shift in healing that and the releasing of these patterns that are going on for you.
Well, before we end this conversation, and we've already told people how to connect with you,
Yeah.
what would be like a little nugget of wisdom to kind of put people on the right path as a result of our conversation today? What would you tell somebody?
Disempowerment is going to stop you. It stops you from living your life. And when we feel disempowered, it opens the door for victimization. I can't heal because it's passed on from my mom or dad. I can't heal because of some blockage that's outside of you, this perceived threat that's going on. And when we are disempowered, our lives will never change. This system opens the door to empowerment. This system opens the door to being able to reclaim your own power and take control of your own destiny. You are not a victim. You are not a person who has to be forever stuck.
Mm.
That becomes a choice, especially when opportunities arise. People have come to me and said, "Well, I can't afford to go see a practitioner or see a psychologist or whatnot." And I said, "Well, I've developed a system that is so inexpensive that you can actually learn it yourself. So there's no excuses. There really isn't. It's there, and it's a matter of how bad do you want to release it? How bad are you willing to put the effort in for yourself?" And most people aren't. Most people are like, "Well, okay, I feel a little better today. You've helped me, and I'm good." And then some people I won't see for a long time, like, "Oh, my light's going like crap right now." And then they're like, "Oh, just make it feel better." And I'm like, "Well, it's you that's gonna make it feel better."
Right.
And I'm just a GPS unit, you know? And so it's it's about empowerment, honestly. How bad do you want it, right? Most people, they will not change until they hit rock bottom. That is fact. They just don't have the tenacity or the drive. But for those that are ready for change, that's where I step in.
Well, there you go. And that's our golden nugget of wisdom today. Bernie, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. For those of you who've been watching and
Yeah.
listening, I do appreciate it as well. Thank you and take care, everybody.
Thank you for having me.